peek because I wanted to find out if this thing had a roller cam, which means instead of just having flat tap, it actually has little rollers on the bottom of the lifters. We'll see that in a little bit, but come on over. There's all these fasteners that hold the intake on. Pretty easy, straightforward stuff. And there's one bypass hose here that goes up to the thermostat housing that I pulled a clamp off already. And I intend on replacing these hoses also. Now with all the fasteners removed, we can lift this right on up off here. There we have it, the lifter valley. It looks really super clean down inside here, and I'm very encouraged by that. This is a Eldebrock Performer RPM intake. Already you can see some mistakes in installation from the last person. This did not happen for me reassembling it. It was actually looks a bit over torqued. Number one, this is what over torquing can cause. Stuff like this. Also, you know, there's a bit of crud in that cooling system. A little bit, not a whole lot, but something down in there to at least note. And this is an exhaust crossover that goes, there's a passage inside the intake that goes between the two sides. Now, how do I know I have a roller cam? Retainers. See, with regular conventional lifters, they need to spin around every time the cam comes up. In fact, you have to put a cam and a lifter set together because they're made together. The top of the cam is actually tilted up to one side, so it's like a ramp. And the bottom of the lifter is actually a little bit dome shaped. So every time the cam comes up and comes in contact with the bottom of the lifter, it's supposed to spin it. That's why you can't just put old lifters or new lifters on an old cam. That's a no-no. With roller cams, it's just the opposite. There are little wheels on the bottom of these, which we'll see soon, that need to stay in that same position. They can't rotate. If they do, they'll self-destruct. So there has to be some sort of retaining mechanism in order to keep the lifters moving in the same direction each and every time. So if you see this retaining mechanism, like what I have here, roller cam, I have these old school speed nut type things for the valve covers, which I kind of like. I mean, the reason why you would have something like this is not so much that it looks cool, but because if you had a solid valve train, meaning that these lifters were not hydraulic, that they were solid lifters, you'd need to come in and adjust the valve, similar to what I've done in some of those Honda videos. So you need to do that periodically. So having fasteners like this makes it a heck of a lot easier to come in here and remove the valve cover to do any type of valve adjustment. Valve cover, surprise! Yep, those are roller rockers. These are Ford SVO 1.6 rockers. Now I'm told that this engine comes stock with 1.6 rockers, but what do you mean by 1.6 rockers? Well, for every bit of effort coming up on here, there's 1.6 bit of effort on this side. So it's like an uneven teeter-totter, where the short end is back here and this end is longer. So what does that give you? Well, it allows you greater lift on the valves because it's doing more work. So the cam is pushing this up so far, but then it's taking it just a little bit farther, 0.6 farther on this side than it normally would otherwise. Another thing about these rockers that's awesome is that it has this roller tip. So instead of this just being a stamped steel piece of something, this tip actually decreases the amount of resistance that's going to be placed on the top of this valve. Also, over on the side here, there's some bearings that allow this to rotate easier. So in other words, making it so that this rocker, instead of just being a stamped piece of metal that just sort of slops back and forth on a piece of metal, it's on all these bearings that make it move that much easier. These little bits right here add up to horsepower in the end because the engine doesn't have to work as hard to run itself. So anything you can do to reduce resistance inside the engine equates to horsepower on the other side. Roller lifters, roller rockers like this really help to do that. Welcome to Lifter Valley. I'm going to peel these intake gaskets off. We're not reusing these. And I'm not as concerned about getting dirt down inside the engine because this engine will be cleaned before it goes back together. Also, I'm noticing a whole lot of RTV has been used. No. No. Same thing happened to the transmission. Remember what Paul had to say about the transmission? He was not happy. Welcome to Lifter Valley. This alternator feels so in my way, so I will remove it. This has a different bracket than stock. This is like a relocation kit, I suspect. That wasn't hard. I like working on old stuff. It ain't hard. I'm going to do my best to keep all these parts together, which I would advise. But oftentimes with builds like this, it may be some time before you're reassembling. So on the TV shows, they often say things like they bag and tag. So in other words, when they remove parts like this, they get like Ziploc baggies and they put the fasteners and the component inside the Ziploc baggies for reassembly later, or to make it easy. So they're not, you know, cars made up, or trucks are also made up of thousands of parts. And you can't necessarily keep track of them all, especially if you're building something yourself. So if you do things like bagging and tagging, it can go a long way towards making reassembly that much more fun instead of a super stressful event. And one thing I often do is I'll just keep stuff together like this. And that way I know all that stuff goes together. Since this bracket goes with the whole alternator deal, another thing to do is take pictures. I'm taking this video, so I could go back to this video and take a look at what I've done, but you can take pictures of things before you take them apart. That way you have a better idea of where they go when you go to put them back together. Order up. You know, I'm almost there with the water pump. I'm just gonna go the rest of the way. I already looked at, priced out a hose kit, silicone hose kit to be precise. I'm probably gonna go with those. And besides that, they kinked this one up pretty good. Where they had this all catterwampus. Not really intent on reusing that. You know, this is Eric, the car guy. We have standards. I'm a pack rat. To me, these hose clamps do have some value for something down the road. But these hoses, meh, they're gone. I'm just gonna keep going with this water pump, starting with a pulley. Somebody painted these black. They were blue. Why? Why did they do that? It was so much prettier like this than this. This is just yucky paint. Look at that. Since I'm only one fastener away from having this water pump off, I'm gonna do that. And some of you may have already noticed that I've got something to catch goo. Even though I've quote unquote drained everything, there's always something hiding in there. And as far as what bolts go where, the other day I saved it in my browser. I found some place that actually walks through where all these fasteners go, and I will look for it again and post a link to it in the description for you. Once again, see all that RTV that's on the gaskets? Stop doing that. Let the gasket do the work. If I take these two bolts off, we can look at the impeller. Okay, fine, we'll do it. There's the impeller. Yay. As long as we're up here, I'm just going to keep going with the front. Got these fasteners that hold the pulley onto the harmonic balancer. Of course, there's one guy. I'm going to use the new hose reel. I just installed it. I love my shop. It's totally ridiculous. This is an underdrive pulley. It's smaller than normal. The theme is we're just going to keep going. This is a 15/16 down inside here, and I'm not even going to bother with an electric tool. There's a washer down inside here. And we can't just like yank that off of there. It's not going to happen. We're going to need a puller in order to get this off, but so as not to damage my timing marker here, I'm going to get that removed now, and then we'll get a puller on this to pull that off. Switching back to electrics for this. I can't remember exactly what was attached here. I'm pretty sure it was something, but just in case, I'll be ready. What I got here is a puller tool. It's honestly not an expensive puller tool, but it pulls stuff. I'm going to thread this bolt in just a little bit so I can push on the outside of this bolt and not push against the crankshaft when I'm pulling this off of here. Just thread it in by hand. It doesn't need to be tightened all the way down. In fact, you want to have some room for it to come out. And there's this piece here. Sort of fits on the end and will allow this whole thing to pivot and spin. I thought about grabbing some washers for these, but I don't think I need them because they're not, I'm not going to be turning them. Help the tool live a long and fruitful life. Now to speed things up, I'm just going to run this down with my impact, but I'm going to pull it off by hand. It's like it was made to do this. Keep your hand on here because it's going to come off, but the bolt should hold it on too. There we go. There we have it, the balancer. It is a balanced assembly. There's rubber in between here. Every time a piston fires, there's an acceleration event on the crankshaft, and then it sort of slows down a little bit, and it keeps doing that over and over and over again. Well, this helps smooth out those bumps, those acceleration events. If one of these is broken, actually look at that. There's some dry rotting on that rubber right there. I'm probably going to replace it. In fact, it's coming out in spots. So that reason alone is probably grounds enough to replace this. I intend to build this engine for performance, and stuff like that is not something you want hanging over your head, because this could scatter your engine if it's not correct. Let's go back to cylinder head land, starting with this valve cover, now that we've got all this mess out of the way. Paired by third. I'll probably take these studs out also, because this cylinder head is going to the machine shop. The more you strip it down before it goes to the machine shop, the better. Because these are sticking out and might get in the way of the head bolts a little bit, I'm just going to pull the spark plugs out. And I also can take a look at them and see how the engine was running. Looking at spark plugs is a window to the combustion chamber. In fact, there's some old timers out there that can tell you everything you need to know about how an engine's running just by looking at the spark plugs. Actually, it looks like it's running pretty good. Maybe burning a little bit of oil, but actually, no, I don't think so. I think that was just running slightly rich. Oil burning is like sort of a tan, crusty, see how clean that was? That one was probably getting too much, well, I hope it wasn't getting coolant, because coolant makes things nice and clean like this. We'll find out more when we pull the cylinder head off. But this one over here looks like it was running rich. This one over here looks like maybe some kind of moisture contamination. That right there is a normal plug. That one looks good. That tan, another normal plug. So we got a rich, lean, normal, normal on this side. Let's see what this side's got in store for us. One's another one that looks a little clean. Looks slightly rich on that one. That one also looks a little bit clean. And that one looks a little bit clean. So it was not burning evenly. There were some differences. Now, could that be an ignition problem? Could that be fuel delivery? Could that be something to do with the valves? I don't know, but when I put this back together, I want to put it back together right, so that all these look the same. An equal amount of blueberries in each cylinder. I'm going to remove the rockers and the push rods, and this will close all the valves and all that such, but yeah, and that'll prep us out to remove the cylinder heads. Now, I didn't have a socket that fit down in here well enough, and I wanted a Allen wrench that fit snug, so I switched over to this one, and hope it works out, because I got a feeling that these were, well, really tightened down, and I was right. Poor man's impact. Yes, I did hit my thumb, and yes, it did hurt. Let's play. How many times is Eric gonna hit his thumb today? 7, that's my guess. Will it work? Yes, it will. I never liked fasteners like this, because if they don't fit snug, if you're not totally down in there, German cars use these all the time, you can totally cheese the fastener, and in doing so, wreck your whole day. That was day, by the way. Wreck your whole day. I'm going to loosen these all up first, and then I'll remove them. Now we take them off. Many times it's said to keep everything all together so you can put it back in the exact same spot it was in when you removed it. I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm saying is that I'm maybe doing different things putting this back together, so I'm only going to go so far with that recommendation. Just keep track of the order that they were in. This also have a different type of pivot back here, but I want to check to see how well these move. Extremely well, actually. This one went to this side, and this one this side. And I don't know if those are just washers or calibrated shims. Honestly, don't know at this point. But I'm just going to keep them together just for the sake of keeping them together. Push rods. You can roll them on the table to see if they're bent. I'm going to keep these in order also. I wonder if these shims were put in because there was some sort of valve interference or something going on. I've decided I'm going to take all the rockers out and then I'll go for all the push rods. Real good. And that's their order. Nice and straight. Let's take the cylinder heads off and find out what's underneath here. Ooh. Yup. Well then. Actually, I probably should have started on the outside. Worked my way in. I don't like the way that's coming out. Head bolts are 1/2 inch, by the way, as far as the bolt head is concerned. Speed the process. That looks like it has RTV on it. Weird little sleeves, I guess, that go down inside the cylinder head. These do look like new fasteners. Let's see what's under here. Cool. My concern was for this cylinder and the possibility of water getting in there. That's interesting. Something happened there of that piston. Something weird went down. Here's the cylinder head, which looks a little cleaner in some of the areas. I mean, I wasn't seeing white smoke or anything out the tailpipe, but I just found it odd that that spark plug was so clean. There has been some weirdness here. These pistons have suffered a little bit of damage here and there. And it's weird that that tan spot is there. It's this one here, it's got something going on. This one here's got, it's like the valves have smashed the piston. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with those shims underneath the rockers. I got a ridge reamer, which basically cleans the top of the cylinder out so that it's easy to get the pistons out, but I don't think I'm going to need it. There really isn't much of a ridge here to speak of. Just looking for some area, particularly in here or down in here, that might have, in fact, that might be it. Right there. Might be a small coolant leak into that cylinder. Let's do this other cylinder head. And you should start from the outside and spiral your way in. When you put them on, start from the inside and work your way out, but when you take them off, start from the outside in. Messed up the last one, sorry. Torque on these doesn't seem very even either. It seems like some are like really tight and others are sort of tight. My fear is that same person that put the car together put the engine together. But we are going to make it right. We're going to rebuild it. We'll make it better than before. just hope it doesn't cost $6 million. Stay with me now. Stay with me, girl. Okay. I'm okay. Let's see what's behind door number 2. Aluminum heads are so nice that they're light. I like to see evenness with all the cylinders, and you can see that there's some variations. So something's happening that's making this engine unbalanced. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but we're gonna do our own machining, install our own new parts, and hopefully alleviate all these issues. But I would like to reuse these cylinder heads. These are good cylinder heads. These are actually variants of, I believe, the GT40 heads. They're older versions, but still, I think, viable. Same story over here with the pistons. The valve reliefs have been accentuated. I'm not sure what happened there, but it seems to have happened across. Oh, shoot. What's that? That's a wah right there. That right there is no bueno. And if that is thick enough, this block is over, because apparently this has already been bored out once. Exactly what I hope to not find. This engine looks like it's sat out in a field for a while, rusted up, and then they put it back into service. I'm going to take a picture of this and send it to my machine shop guy and see what he says. That is a revelation, and not one I'm really happy to find, and we haven't even taken the oil pan off yet. This may kill this engine block, if I'm honest. If that can't be machined away, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble. It's not going to stop me. I'm still moving forward, but I guess the next time I buy a car in a parking lot in Walmart down in Kentucky, I'm going to think twice before I just listen to the sound and I'm lured in by that siren song. Anyway, why don't we spin it and watch the pistons go up and down? That'll be fun. ETCG power. You can see the lifters moving too a little bit. Some of them are going up and down. But there you go, the operation of the engine. But it happens at a much more rapid pace. And looking down inside the cylinders, that one looks like the only one that's the quote-unquote problem. Man, that does put a kind of a sick feeling in my stomach. Let's just continue with the disassembly and we'll figure it out. Let's pull these lifters out. There's two, what are these? 7/16 fasteners.